All right, so thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. Roxy, you're absolutely amazing for setting this up. She's the brains behind everything. So y'all clap it up for Roxy. The lunch box, thank you so much for having this beautiful space and venue. Everything in here is just amazing. And Munchie Mia, right? Is that the name? Little Munch MIA. Thank you so much for the flan. You can check out the flan. It's on that side. And the coffee, whoever made the coffee, that was awesome. So my name is Herson, and I have a social justice page called Woke Wednesdays on Instagram. Please feel free to follow. Please feel, 1, 2, yeah. Please feel free to follow. Okay. Please feel free to follow. Yeah, alright, cool. Yeah, so Woke Wednesdays I started about 22 months ago. And aside from regular daily posts, I also host a live talk show every single Wednesday on Instagram Live. So we address everything from race, gender, LGBTQ, patriarchy, you name it, anything pertaining to social justice, we do it on the show. I have a different co-host every single night. Amor has been on the show. We talked about Reiki. So yeah, I love having young people of color on the show. So if you ever want to be a guest, just let me know. I always have wine, so that's a bonus. And it's a complete honor just to be here tonight and be moderating this amazing panel. So if you would like to introduce yourselves, tell the people who you are, what you do, favorite color.
Favorite color is orange. My name is Terina Lopez. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. And that's it. I'll tell you a lot more about myself or just my work later.
Hello, my name is Fernando. Favorite colors are black and gold. 06, you know. For those who laughed, I appreciate that. That's a courtesy laugh. Okay, just checking the mic. I am what's known as a registered marriage and family therapist intern, which is about to get their license. So I've been working in the field, but it takes about 2 years before you actually, kind of like how doctors do residencies, you have to work in there. And so I've been doing that. Been counseled and worked with a lot of community groups for 10 years plus, from dancing and all that stuff. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about that later. Check.
We have loud voices too.
Yeah. You guys want to just the video, yeah. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, my name's Fernando. So yeah.
Yo. Hey, what's up, y'all? Yo. What's up, y'all? My name is Billy. I'm a musician, songwriter, and writer. My favorite color is salmon. It's kind of like off pink.
So real quick, the way this is gonna work tonight, we're gonna ask questions for about 35 minutes to our panel, and then the last 30 to 25 minutes, open it up for questions from the audience, comments, whatever y'all would like to say. So how do you define mental health? What encompasses having being healthy mental wise? So please feel free to answer. Whoever like to go.
All right. So I guess my direction or my feeling on mental health is it's basically everything that's not physical health. I can even say when I was studying, I thought about we have doctors, but then we have specialists, like surgeons and people who do sports injuries. And I thought if I was a doctor, if I was a surgeon, what would I want to specialize in? And the organ that came to my mind was the mind. It's this ethereal, we all understand that we have a mental health. We all understand we have the mind, not just the brain. That's obviously physical, but the mind. And people who find success with that can overcome things, even if their physical health isn't that great. So you have people who have gone through physical issues, that kind of thing, but because their mental health is good, they have the kind of coping skills that keep them moving forward. And you have other people who are completely physically okay, but their mental health is bad, and so they're struggling with a lot of stuff. So for me, it's anything that you have to deal with that is kind of the mind.
I would encompass it to just sort of speak to health, right? And I guess when I think about how do you guys think about health, right? And so we think oftentimes about our physical beings. We think about the juices that we drink, and we think about the exercise, but it's seldom that we talk about a different aspect of our bodies, part of our bodies that is our mind. So when I'm thinking about mental health, I think about the mind. I think about one's emotional well-being. I'm thinking about understanding aspects of self as well. So I think when I'm thinking about mental health, it is in some ways, part of the equation that can't be ignored within the general calculation of health. So, and maybe one of, for me, obviously, I'm in the field, but maybe one of the most important aspects of health.
Kind of touching on what he said, I would say it's like your mental attitude, kind of like the way you perceive things, the way you treat others, the way, just your perception, the way you feel about waking up in the morning, the way you speak to people, your body language. I would say that's all a reflection of your mental health.
So it's interesting because tonight one of the focuses is the Latinx community, right? One thing that Roxy addressed and Amor addressed was that even when you overlap this with religion, sometimes people can have a different approach to what mental health is, right? You add gender, you add sexuality, you add all these things, and things become even more complicated. And one thing that's interesting is, why do you think, or my question is, why do you think this is so taboo, specifically in the Hispanic community? Even aside from Hispanic community, like writ large, from a very young age, we tell boys, hey, boys will be boys can't cry, you cannot do that, because to do that, then you are not a boy anymore. So this is a very systemic issue, starts from adolescence, and we continue. So why do you think this is so pervasive in the Hispanic community as far as it being taboo?
I think in general, when you feel like a minority, it is oftentimes difficult to acknowledge an issue like mental health, because there's already so many aspects of which we feel suppressed. So to then kind of also speak to an area that I think for a really long time has been sort of defined as, if an individual has a mental health or speaks about mental health, then they in some way are weak, right? And as a general minority, it is not just now I'm, Hispanic, Latino, Black, Asian, I'm also weak, crazy. There's so much stigma, I think, in general about what it means to explore one's mental health that in many, in general, I think is difficult, but particularly for, a minority, it's almost, we're double suppressed in some ways.
To piggyback off of that, I think oftentimes those who endure some kind of trauma, whether it be generationally, think about the Hispanic community, is most of it is first or second generation here. If you go to like Latin America, like mental health isn't nearly, it's not even ever a conversation really. So the fact that you have first generation Latin children being born who are being raised by people who know the culture and the systems of their homeland, and so then there's that issue where it's like, well, this is what it's like in school, and their image is always going to be what it was like in school. Like my parents are Panama, so they're thinking school is like school in Panama, and and not only is the location different, but technology is different. So now even if they were from here, the inclusion of Facebook and social media, before when you were bullied, it was for a few hours. Now it's nonstop. It's never ending. And you have access to being bullied 24 hours a day. And you have cultures who never had that growing up. So I think a lot of it has to do with, those things that they have endured, that trauma that different people have gone through. And it's like, well, if I went through that, then get up, mijo. I came from my country over here, and I dealt with this kind of stuff. So,
right.
No, get up. It's not a big deal. And that desire for independence, that pride issue that happens a lot in these kind of cultures, keeps it away from getting better.
Can I piggyback off of that? I think in some way transitioning also to the States meant sort of not. Okay, I'm gonna do this. I could do this. But I think in some ways, when I think about my family, venturing over to the States, I think in some ways they had to ignore an aspect of themselves in order to triumph, and that aspect, at times, what came in the forefront of their mind was professional accomplishments, succeeding in that route, education, family survival, and so much was, there was not an ability to acknowledge a different aspect of themselves. And now that we are here, we're kind of creating the space to be able to acknowledge that as part of ourselves, and the safe
also think that if we don't have a word for something, we can't really identify it. And depression is like, it's not something we learn until we is much older. And we might have been dealing with it our whole lives already. And touching back on what you said, like, I feel like Latinx, is that the proper term? Latinx, we have a unique, our family has a unique struggle, upbringing, you know, like they grew up with nothing. And, you know, they kind of just expect us to be stronger. And sometimes they project their strength on us, like, oh, I've been through this, you don't know what it is to struggle. And they kind of just expect us to be as strong as they are. But, you know, everybody's brain is created differently. And, yeah, I think it just starts with recognizing it at home and speaking to our children and our siblings and our family members about it. Because I just think depression is not one emotion, it's a bunch of emotions left unresolved. And as you get older, it grows with you.
I think it makes a brilliant point about having a language, right? You can't, sometimes you can't name something, so you don't really know what it is. You might think there's something wrong with you. Like this is my fault, obviously, because I don't know what this is called. Like I used to think when I was growing up, hey, like some people don't have time to be depressed, like, or to acknowledge that they are in a depressed state, or that they are dealing with some type of emotional or internal battle. I thought that was for like rich white people, if I'm being honest. I'm like, poor people don't have this luxury. So what do you think is kind of like the overlaps of just the fact that we have to have a safe space says something about the type of society that we live in, right? We wouldn't need to have these spaces if we were already talking about this constantly and if this wasn't taboo. So what do you think is the importance, or how do we begin to bring awareness to our communities that are disenfranchised, whether, you know, citizenship-wise, ethnically, racially, social class, gender? How do you think we begin to bring awareness to all of these communities? How do you think we begin to do that and have these conversations when families sometimes think that, nah, bro, you wilding right now. Like, this isn't a real thing. This is a made-up thing.
I think we have to start the conversation somewhere. I feel really happy that shirts like this exist, that hashtags like, you know, Mental Health Awareness Day, week, are trending. You know, despite the circumstances and the unfortunate suicides that have been going on, and that we've witnessed, you know, be it Robin Williams or Anthony Bourdain or Kate Spade, right? I think it's generating a really large dialogue amongst individuals about the realities of mental health. I think that's a start. I think reducing the stigma starts with us, right? And the more we ourselves could understand what is mental health, how do I tend to it, what encompasses it, like the more that we normalize that, the more that we stop, you know, struggling behind closed doors and open the conversation for that, the more I think we generate that dialogue to be continued. So be it that it is speaking up in classrooms, or that it is, you know, venturing to events like this, that it is going to therapy, that it's supporting a friend, that it is normalizing or actually acknowledging what it is that you're seeing, instead of turning a blind eye with a friend or a colleague. I think that we're being advocates, and I think in some ways, you know, you throw a stone, but the ripple effects are really large. And so I think that we all kind of have to do our best to kind of begin that move of motion.
Yeah, and I think it should be a part of like elementary school. You know, if we need history, if we need math, if we need PE, I think mental health is just as important.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what he was just saying, it's interesting, you know, I mentioned before, my parents are Panamanian, my dad's a dentist. And so sometimes I look into like my own life for understanding and solutions, and this concept of stigmatization, or being a stigma or a taboo, and not being able to talk about something, how we kind of deal with that every day. Like, we think about language, we talk about, you know, I remember back when people used to say things were off the chain, you know, and like, but the first guy who said it was like really weird, you know, know? And I remember the first time someone was like, "That's lit," and I was like on fire, like what's going on? You know? But like the first time it was said, it was taboo. It was like, what are you trying to say right now? What is this? You know? But increasing that form of communication, increasing that conversation. Obviously, you know, this is like my field, so I'm going to have the conversation all the time. But I think it's important for, imagine if only marriage and family therapists said the word lit. Like no one would ever say it. It's the fact that other people, different communities say this word that it becomes normal. And now we've actually defined a word as like as a, not only like a direction that people will go on at night, but like a state of being, you know, like we've taken a word and we've given meaning to it that is normal. Like you can say it and people are like, I get what he's saying. He sounds really bad when he says it, but I get what he's trying to say. So going back to like the dentistry thing, I think we live in a time where we feel the dentist is normal. Like if someone says, hey, you going to the dentist, or you have to go to the dentist next week or something, it's so normal. But in the 1930s, it wasn't. Like people didn't go to the dentist. It was not a thing. And if someone was going to go to the dentist, it was because their teeth were just like falling out. Until they came out with like, and this is a true story, they came out with commercials telling people to go to the dentist twice a year. It was a toothbrush, like a toothpaste commercial. They were trying to sell more toothpaste, so they told everybody to go twice a year, and then people just started catching on. It just became normal. And now if I say, oh, I'm going to the dentist, it's not a big deal. But if I say, I'm going to go see a therapist, people are like, word? You know, like you're going to see a therapist? So I think being able to have the conversation, even when we may not feel ill. I think some of the barriers happen when someone is going through depression or somebody's going through anxiety, and they try to tell it to their social circle. There's this natural pushback. Like, are they saying that? Are they being too whiny? Are they being over dramatic? Like, we know about your boyfriend. Like, you know, like there's all of these things that get in the way of what they just said. You know, and being on the professional end, it doesn't matter what happened. The fact that you told me that, I'm taking that as is, and I'm going to work with you. But we deal with our friends, and so when you see this person broke up with their boyfriend like 4 times again, you get numb to the fact that they actually might be really sad, or they might be really lonely, and not just saying it right now. So I would love for our generation to be the one that turns therapy into the same word as dentistry. It's just a normal thing. And going back to what you said, I think it should be a part of our family. Like, no one's like, little kids shouldn't go to the doctor. No, they have to go to the doctor. You have to, because these people are professionals that know about this. And so I almost feel like that is like a solution for a lot of these issues, like school shootings, all these things. Like, it's tough when they're in high school. They've already had 8 years of trauma to deal with. But if you talk to that kid when he's 5 and he has no friends and he's like, I'm lonely, like, it really does have the potential for like changing things. So I think it's like a responsibility of every person to talk.
Can I say something? So I think one of the things that I, going off of something that you mentioned, it's like, just because we hold the space for somebody doesn't mean that that person is crazy or problematic. There are plenty of people that come into therapy spaces just to get to know themselves, to understand, like, why am I having these reoccurring thoughts or this feeling, right? Like, that doesn't put me at a danger of my life, that doesn't cause, stresses onto my relationship, but I just don't know where it's coming from. So not because you set aside an hour in a therapy office does that mean that you are crazy or problematic or that you have some severe diagnosis. It means that you're creating the space and the priority to get to know yourself. And I think that oftentimes there's a correlation between mental health and the stigma of crazy, and there's less of a correlation between mental health and self-awareness. And so the greater that we become more self-aware, the more that we understand ourselves, the greater capacity that we have in relationships, within our profession, and our satisfaction of life. And so I think that we not only have to integrate the dialogue, but we have to change the correlation that we make to assume that because you see a therapist or because you seek support that you are crazy, right? It means actually that there is strength in both the time that you are setting aside to prioritize your own health, well-being, and your mental health. So I think that shift needs to begin to happen, and that is I think a really big piece of not just how do we advocate, but how do we begin to shift the dialogue in a way that it's actually productive.
So I wonder. So I'm trying to think through what everyone is saying. Do you think sometimes that by saying this person
even for tonight, I was trying to think of like words that I can use to communicate this, and I didn't know if like deal with was like a, a, a good way of kind of articulating something pertaining to mental health. Like this person deals with this issue or this problem. I didn't know. I was trying to think of, because I think in a way I'm kind of perpetuating a problem by doing this, and I think in a way we also individualize people. Also, this person is dealing with this particular issue, because I'm thinking like everyone in some form or way has mental health. I don't even know what the word is. Y'all help me out. Has a mental health. Yeah. See. Yeah. Has a mental health. So sometimes you think that in a way, we need categories, we need languages, right, to articulate what this person might, specifically pinpointing what this person might be dealing with. But at the same time, in a way, there's a consequence to that, because now it's, oh, well, this person has this. I don't have anything, but they have this. So, like, what do you think about that? Is that kind of like a catch-22?
I think the word issue. Sorry.
Can I say one thing? Just how kind of as you said that to you, my brother?
Person. Yeah.
I feel like money is one thing. I feel like it's stress, but it's something that we don't need. You understand what I'm saying? Like, Robin Williams once said, you know, like no matter how old you get, I always think to that heart. You understand what I'm saying? Like Bernie Mac once said, no matter how much money you have, you could always, you know, put that in a realm of like how happy you are. Because I've seen people who have the most riches, but they're not as happy as a person who's broke, but they know what they're gonna have. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just value. There's people who have money, but they're not genuinely happy. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's one thing. Like I don't know, you know, as our 20s, you know, some of going to our 30s, you know, having kids, you know, like moving out of our parents' house and things like that, going to like a happy home. That money is an issue when you actually, you know, reality that like, you know, like if you have a mindset, a strong mindset, a subconscious mind that, you know, you can balance that. And I feel like money is a very strong issue with this generation where you feel like, oh, since this person has 1,000 followers and I only have 200 followers, that they have more than I have. If you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like, oh, okay, you know, he has 1,000 followers, I have 200. It's just like, I can be happier than the person who has like $1,000 in their bank account and I may have like, you know, like 5,000. Or there's people who, you know, they don't have a job, but they're rapping and they're making money off of it, rather than the person who has a 9 to 5 that's making minimum wage. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's one thing, just me personally, I feel like that's kind of brought me down, brought me back up with it having the same amount of money, rather than, you feel me, having not as much money as the next person. You know what I mean? Like, we all feel like, just me as a person, I don't know about anyone else, but you feel me? Like, I feel like there's a lot of people, you feel me, we may have like $200 in our name, and we're like, fuck, you feel me? Like, shit, I'm really down and out, and in actuality, you're not really down and out. Exactly what you said. It's just a subconscious thinking of you feel like you're down and out, but in reality, you're not down and out. You have everything you want, because 2 weeks ago, you had what, $1,000, but you went out and spent down near fucking $500. You know
so there are, I guess, multiple factors, right, that can
Yeah.
kind of impact the way you think of things, of
Just
yourself,
not-
right?
exactly,
And
exactly.
just and it's kind of just pervasive. It ends up affecting everything. So what do y'all think of? Because I think he's making a great point. So what are y'all's thoughts on this?
I guess I sorry that I always like jump in. That's
I know I'm very like off topic.
No.
Oh, no, man.
It's just something that was just in my head that I feel like I should get off.
I think
Because I feel like money is a very valuable thing that we don't put in that topic of depression. Because there's people who like, they'll have like fucking damn near $200 to the game. Like for instance, Mac Miller in Temptation. They pushed out their, you feel me, problems and things like that. And we're just like, alright, you know, yeah, you feel me, got those problems too. But then it's like, when someone passes, it's like, oh yeah, I felt that. You feel me? Like, yeah, you feel me? I was with him from day one. And it's like, yo, you were really with him from day one. Because when I was putting out my problems, you're like, ha ha ha, you know, like, yeah, you feel me? Like, yeah, we all go through this shit. But then when it dies, it's like, yeah, you feel me? Like, yo, I feel like you sit. It's just like this fake love. And I feel like Instagram and social media takes a valuable, you feel me, impact on that. Or not even valuable impact, just social media, just, you feel me, someone's opinion. They're out, you feel me, like, just someone telling you, like, yo, you feel me, like, I don't really fuck with this. You're like, oh, it's because
I think I'm gonna interject.
Say that seeing other people with nice things makes you feel like less of yourself because you might not be able to afford it. So money is an issue.
Society.
We are trying
I
to-
think people take money out of their broke, they substitute and say, oh shit, I'm depressed.
Because I
No, you're not
constantly say
depressed
if I
because
have
you're broke.
money, I feel like
Broke,
shit.
broke.
I feel like having money takes out
All right, so let's bring it in real quick, right? Because we want to respect everyone's opinion and kind of their voice. But I think there is an interesting thing that we're kind of saying that sometimes people don't have the vocabulary to say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. I need help. So sometimes we do it in different ways, maybe through our music, maybe through our actions, maybe someone might be drinking, whatever. So what are some things that maybe y'all have seen that it's like maybe like wow, there's something going on. Maybe we should ask questions.
Yeah.
So I guess signs.
There's a lot of warning signs, like between friends. Honestly, one of them is that they said it. You know, like you mentioned before, you know, there are many times people do voice it. They express that they're struggling with something, and people tend to minimize because you know they either reflect on what it was when they went through that. So if I'm like I'm broke, I think about like, well, when I'm broke, I already stopped thinking about them, and I already stopped listening to them because I was ready to respond with some sort of answer, rather than really take it in. Like, what is this like for you? Oh man, I'm dealing with this. I'm dealing with that. And the truth is, the struggle is there. So even those who may appear to be doing better than you, let's say I don't want to use the word success because success is defined really differently. But let's say with substance, with things, they have more things or they get more of a bigger paycheck. It might be easy to say like, oh, that's not really, you're not really stressed out. And they really might be stressed out, you know? So first, just hearing what people say and taking it for real, not just as they're just talking mess or whatever. But then other things too, like isolation, you know, people tend to isolate themselves or they no longer continue to do the things that really help them move forward. So when a dancer stops dancing, when a painter stops painting, those are the things that whether they realized it or not, let's say they were studying business and they're a business person, but they would paint on the weekends. As soon as they stop painting, they're missing a part of themselves. And they might forget that that's a part of themselves and they'll just feel a kind of emptiness or something is missing because they let go of something that was truly a part of themselves, but it wasn't as acknowledged by maybe the society around them, you know? Dad's like, you're doing great in school, you don't have time to paint. That might have been the thing that helped them move forward, that helped them be themselves. So recognizing like certain behaviors that stop, and then bad coping skills, drinking more, doing certain, you know, activities, illicit drugs, those kinds of things. I think people tend to try to escape certain things with a lot of those unhealthy coping skills. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a drug. It could be exercise too, overworking, it could be the job. It's always work, or it's always Instagram, or it's always the relationship. So I think just being aware of shifts in they were doing all right and then they stopped talking to me or they stopped painting or, you know, those kinds of signs.
Yeah. So I wanted to respond in that. I had a friend tell me something, and it always stuck with me, and I try to emphasize this in my clients, but I think it's important that we be curious, not judgmental. And it's oftentimes that I think we can pass a quick judgment on people. That was foul, that was, they're this. And I think what we're doing is we're limiting the dialogue of being able to actually further understand somebody. A lot of people's behaviors are rooted in value systems, rooted in their past, in how they understand things, and can be shifted, right? So I think as soon as we begin to pass judgment, we completely limit ourselves from fully understanding an individual. But further than that, I think what's also important, and what's a really nice space for that can happen within the context of psychotherapy, is an examination of values, is an examination of behaviors, is what is our relationship with things like alcohol, drugs, sex, women, men, money, right? Like, how do we think about money? How are we thinking about value? How are we thinking about material possessions? And how are we thinking about external things? Are we thinking that external things are going to bring us internal value, right? Like, so it's important to sort of, and that can look very different for a lot of different people based on, again, family of origin issues, past experiences, value systems, lack of knowledge. So I really feel like that could be a very individualized process, and further than that, just a really enhancing process to know where you fall within your relationship with alcohol, your relationship with food, your relationship with exercise, your relationship with your family. So I think I was thinking about the way that you were talking about finances, and I was thinking, well, I feel like people's relationships with finances are so complex. My mother, raised me to just always save. And I remember I had this uneasiness about spending, and when it came to even opening my business, I was like, oh, what do I spend on, right? And this guilt that accompanied spending as well, and so I think it's important and really liberating to be able to sort of create your own definition, but with the self-awareness of what does it mean to you. So even somebody, I know that you were referring to several artists. I think the scope and at times the difficulty is we can sit there and judge anybody. We can sit there and literally judge one another, and we do nothing by. I think we continue to widen the gap between ourselves and others if we create that space, that sense of judgment. And I think it's important to as therapists, we attempt to be empathetic, right? A lot of individuals may come to us in this confused state, not liking what they are doing, but why is it that they're doing what they're doing? How do we understand that? And I think we can be better people. I think we can be better brothers, sisters, community members if we exercise that with one another. That there is I think there's too much of a sense of separation and not enough of a sense of investment and union. And I think we're all very diverse, but I think we're all human, and we're all really connected to, and that's really important to sort of honor as well.
To answer the question about what we can do, I would say just be more aware. I feel like as it becomes something more normal in hip hop and culture, we tend to pass it off like, oh, they're just doing it because it's trendy, or they're just doing it for attention. But 9 times out of 10, people with depression need attention. That's why they're depressed. And back to touch on what he said, I feel like for those who suffer from depression because of lack of money, it's because money becomes like a temporary escape. What happens when you have money? You could go hang out with your friends, you could party, you could drink, you could buy drugs. And then when you don't have that, it's kind of like you're alone with your thoughts. And that's when it kind of all drowns you, so to say. Yeah, that's
So part of this Latinx experience, it kind of the way we're kind of talking about first generation, immigrant families, poverty is a very real thing, especially in a city like Miami. right? We're very segregated in Miami, not just racially, but also class-wise. So what do you think are like some resources that people can kind of like have? Go where can people go? Are there free things that we can do in the community that we can take advantage of? Stuff in Spanish that people can kind of places people can go to.
So as far as like resources, I don't know if you guys know about like 211. 211 is kind of like 911, but instead of it being like emergency, they're gonna send a police to your house. It's more of a directory of like local resources. So they'll connect you with like agencies. Like you can literally call 211 and they'll pick up the phone and you can say, I'm broke, I need dinner tonight for my family, and they will connect you to like a food bank. Or you could say, my kids want to play sports, but we don't have the money to put them in. And they'll say, oh, we have a program that pays for like the first season, and you have to pay for the second season, but it helps cut the cost. So like, and that's actually a real program. They pay for the first season of a child who hasn't been able to play sports. So they're just a directory, so you can call them with anything, and they'll try to connect you to where. So that's a really good resource. And then places like this, honestly, what is it called? The lunchbox word? Yeah, I need to for real find out more about this space and what you guys are doing here, because I think it's awesome. I had the pleasure of being able to do something similar with like the dance community in Fort Lauderdale, the House of Drums, and so. But I think it's that. I think you being able to meet here and have this discussion. You're way ahead of past times. Like, believe it or not, like just the fact that you guys are here right now having this talk is awesome. It's huge. And yeah, so I think the easy resources would be like 211, that kind of thing. And honestly, the internet, like you have the college of YouTube, like YouTube and the internet, just like you can learn anything from there. You can really, really delve into the concepts in mental health. I think sometimes it's safer to talk about the things maybe you might not be struggling with. Sometimes people wait for the struggle to then research it. It's like, I'm not dealing with strep throat, and then as soon as I have strep throat, I'm like, WebMD, like what do I do? Because my throat hurts, what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So I think just checking out different things, what are teens dealing with in this, or where can I go to hang out? I don't even know how this place advertised. I can tell you right now, in Broward, I can't tell you how many youth and college-age people would absolutely love to be here tonight if they know. And then it's like, well, I didn't know. How do we know this? So I guess to me, 211 is one of the better resources, and then helping people like the Lunchbox connect to those kinds of resources so that their name's a part of the directory.
I think there's a lot of individuals, at least I work with a lot of individuals that take pro bono cases. So I brought a bunch of business cards. I will leave them here. If anybody is in need to connect with a therapist, I'd be happy to sort of to point you in the right direction. We can talk as well. There's free support groups, so depending on kind of what exactly you might need, like there's a really great eating disorder support group that tends to be my specialty. So it's a free group. It meets at Speaking of colleges, if any of you guys are a student, actually mental health services or something, like people literally like the counselors at the university are like, wow, well, we would really like a few, students to actually walk in here. So if you're a student at a local university, you are entitled to services within your university. They may be limited, but they are asked and mandated to refer you out if for any reason you are needing more sessions than what they can offer. So that's also a really nice resource. There's local agencies around town as well. So those are also just within arm's reach from you guys.
Yeah, and I have a suicide prevention hotline. Comes directly to my phone. If I can't answer, somebody on my team answers. And, it's 24/7.
What's the number?
1-800-TLK-BZZY, talk busy. I don't remember the exact number, but it's TLK-BZZY.
Cool. Thank you so much. Questions from the audience? Comments? Eric?
Hi, how you doing? Thank you very much. Happy to be here. I just had a few ideas that popped up.
Gotcha. So here's the issue with friends, and even as like, let's say a therapist, like I'm trained, I went to school for this, and I know that I'm not really supposed to be giving advice, because that's the natural thing to do, is to just give advice. You know, people want to come to you and ask something, and so it's a really hard thing to walk. And as a professional too, I have what they call, you have to avoid dual relationships. So if I'm friends with you outside, I can't be your therapist. Why? Because I'm biased. So what if I don't like the person you're dating, or what if I want you to be more on my end, or you know, that kind of stuff, right? So I think the issue with finances, the issue with, you know, resources, there are resources that will cover those who are financially not doing well or lower. I could say I used to work for Children's Home Society, and we were in-home therapists. So I would go to your house for up to 3 hours a week for free for 6 months, and it was free as long as there was someone between the birth to 17. So it had to be a minor in the house, and it had to affect the minor somehow. So it could be something like, let's say mom is going through some sort of depression. It's going to affect a toddler. It's going to affect a teenager. It's going to affect them. So even, you know, there were ways to get connected with these kind of agencies that will come. So all of my clients didn't pay anything. So being aware of that, and that's honestly, it's on us too. And it's on us being able to participate in these kinds of events and let people know that these resources exist. You know, in the same way I didn't know that this place existed, and now that I do know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to have so many people come here. So it's on me to help get that word out that those resources do exist. And if you're a friend, and this is kind of a bold statement, I guess. So if I have to talk in front of a podium later, I apologize now. But if you're a friend, honestly, the best thing you could do is support, listen, and direct them to a professional. Hands down. If someone came to me and they're like, man, my tooth hurts, I could be like, dang, go to dentist. Like, I can't be like, you know, just open your mouth, let me poke around in there, because I don't know. All I can go is based off of what I think I know. And then we know that depending on what we're going through, what if I just went through a breakup and you're telling me that you're going through, what if I liked you and I didn't like the guy that you're with? Now I might be like, you know what, you should probably just leave him, he don't deserve you. Let's go to get Red Lobster. I don't know if Red Lobster exists. But
cheddar biscuits.
yeah, cheddar biscuits. But no, I think the best thing you could do is pass the, like, listen, support. So don't go, I don't want to hear it. Go talk to a professional, because sometimes people do that too. Just listening, because sometimes just saying it. I don't know if you guys have ever had like a crazy day, and then before the other person responds, you're just like, I already feel better, just because I was able to just all over this person right now, you know. And then and if it's a dude, they mess it up because they're like, well, what you should do, and you're like, no, just listen. So yeah, I think just listening, being there, and then helping them connect with professional services is probably the best thing you can do. Yeah.
And sometimes there's like a physicality to it. Like in my master's program, I had a young lady come up to me and shared a lot of just personal information, and I was like, man, I think she needs to talk to someone, a professional. And I literally got up from my office, and I was on campus, I was at FIU, and literally just walked over with her to CAPS, I forgot what the acronym is, but like psychological services on campus.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's like a physicality to this. Sometimes it's getting the phone and calling with them,
Yes.
or giving them a ride there. You know, sometimes
That's awesome.
there's that component to it. Real quick, I do have a question. How do you begin to know that you might want to talk to somebody? Because we've talked about like signs that other people can kind of see, but how do you kind of begin to pick up on your own kind of signs and behaviors?
I mean, I can talk, but I feel like I talk a lot, so. 3.
I mean,
It's a loaded question.
I know because I go back to this idea of like we all, right, like every single individual, and I'm not spirit, so I can't speak for both of you, but like I think everybody has questions about themselves. Everybody has doubts about themselves, and I think if they're persistent, and either they are putting you in harm's way, they're getting in the way of an achievement or relationships or life circumstances, then I think they should be addressed. And I love the idea of like, you know, if I was at church recently, and the guy, there was a man who was talking about this retreat, and he was talking about a couples retreat, and he said, you know, by the time I think about this retreat, like I think about car maintenance. He's like, by the time he's like, I truly say this because at times couples come to me when their cars are broken. He's like, so I think about retreats as car maintenance, and I thought to myself, like, that's interesting, right? That we are vehicles, we have children, and this beautiful baby that's around here that every time I hear, right? Like, we have children, and we have relationships, and we have jobs, and we have sisters, and you know, we have like, we're in this life, and how often are we servicing ourselves, right? Like, how often are we checking in? Are we taking time for ourselves? Are we doing things like Reiki, like yoga? And further than that, when the answers don't prevail and we're not finding the relief, how little we allow ourselves to access things like mental services. So I think oftentimes if it feels like nothing is getting better, if it feels like there's just a curiosity, it doesn't have to be a problem in order to get mental health, right? It could just be a curiosity, guys. Like, walking into a therapist space doesn't mean I'm thinking about killing myself or have anxiety or have depression. Like, allow for it. And I think one of the beautiful things about Argentina is that Argentina, almost everybody has a therapist, right? So you go to school and people are like, gotta go, I'm gonna go see my therapist, like, meet you after, or I'm going to work but I gotta go see my therapist in the morning, right? So like, I think that there could be a space where that could be normal. There doesn't have to be a problem for you to be in that office. There doesn't, so I think sometimes it's, I think a flag for us could be the persistent problem, but I think it also is just about having that persistence, that continuous space at times to be able to kind of like reflect on ourselves, and pull out some of the dots. So that was, all right, I'm done. I could be a talker too.
Cool, yeah. So maybe we want to kind of end it, and then that way everyone kind of, y'all stick around for a little bit, and y'all want to talk to them afterwards, I'll stick around.
I just wanted to interject
Yeah, go
and say
ahead.
that some resources that I'm aware of, you mentioned before, like UM. I know UM and Nova do have their student, what would be the right term?
Some sort of
Organizations.
Well, no, they're student, they're still getting
they're interns.
Oh, they're
yeah,
students,
so they are students, but they do work on a sliding scale. Sometimes you can get the services for free, like a session for free, or even like $10 a session. So UM and Nova does that. I know there is another place in Miami called Care Resources. They also work on a sliding scale. Borinquen Clinic, which is here in Midtown. If you guys ever are going to Wynwood, it's like that big. There's a big clinic sign on the side. They work on a sliding scale. So there's a lot of clinics that work on a sliding scale basically based off your paychecks, your income. So all you have to do is show them that, you know, what your range is, and they'll kind of work with that so that you still get the services that you need. And then to kind of mention about what you were saying, I think that a great thing that I've always thought about, I previously worked in substance abuse, so I always thought how awesome it is to be able to have AA or NA or Al-Anon, but what about just the people who don't have anything, right? We just want a support group maybe that we can also meet once a month, and I think that might be an idea to dive into, of kind of creating that type of atmosphere where you just meet once a month to kind of talk about whatever grief that you're going through, or and just a safe space to do so.
That's cool. Another place, another place real quick, In Good Company is a Instagram page that like hosts parties and stuff. But part of what they do as well is a young men's kind of talk. So it's like for young men, well, older men, yeah. And it's once a month. We just get together on a Thursday and we just talk, hang out. Last time Eric came and we had like maybe 30 guys there, and we just talked. It was just super dope. Yeah. I'm up.
What I wanted to say is I also host, like I do private reading sessions, which I obviously pay for, but I host a monthly, completely by donation, some more, but my website's called U Plus Life, but I'll have my circle dates on there on a calendar and any other events that will be partaking with Latin Bar.
Also, real quick, Janacy over there in the corner does have sage or bath salts, incense, bottles, if you're into that kind of stuff.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you so much.